In 2018, Todd Howard hopped on stage at E3 and announced to the world that they would begin working on Elder Scrolls 6, the follow-up to Skyrim, one of the best RPGs ever made. And so the wait began for more info on when we would venture into Tamriel again, hopefully in better than ever looking gameplay and graphics. 7 years later, we have not heard a peep from the team at Bethesda about when Elder Scrolls 6 would be coming our way, but in 2025, a game from a small Polish studio came out in early access called Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon. Now, I've seen some coverage of this game, but not nearly as much as I think it deserves. In a time where we see constant releases of Metroidvania games that are like the classic Metroid games and about 100 Souls-like games that come out every year, this feels like someone took that idea and decided to make the first Scrolls-like or maybe Skyrim-like game, and I think it really pays off, at least most of the time. I am Limbo from DeltiasGaming.com, and today we're going to talk about possibly the best new fantasy RPG that you haven't heard of yet. If you like video games and you want to hear more about the best new and upcoming RPGs, open world action games, and more, please drop a like, hit that subscribe button. But for now, let's chat about Tainted Grail. Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon is an open world RPG that takes the classic legend of King Arthur and twists it into something much darker and much more disturbing than we usually see. Imagine the Knights of the Round Table, the Enchanted Forest, the Kingdom of Camelot, but all of that corrupted, decayed, and eaten alive by a spreading curse. That is the world that you're stepping into. Instead of playing the chosen hero destined to save the land, you're just a simple wanderer trying to survive in a kingdom that's fallen apart. Villages are abandoned, the forests are sick, and even the people you meet feel very wrong, like they're being twisted by something. The vibe is heavy, grim, and oppressive. This isn't the kind of fantasy where you slay a dragon and get a feast thrown in your honor. Here, every step feels dangerous, and it feels like every decision that you make might cost you more than you know when you make it. That is the heart of Tainted Grail. It's not about some medieval glory, it's more about survival, and that's what makes it stand out in a large sea of RPGs that have come out lately. Now, let's dig into the systems that make Fall of Avalon, because this isn't just a Skyrim clone with a darker coat of paint. It is built on some very different, very unique ideas. At its core, this survival RPG means that you're not just hacking and slashing your way through the dungeons. You're constantly thinking about your hunger, your fatigue, and even how corrupted your mind is becoming just by existing in this world. If you push yourself too far without resting or eating, the game will punish you. Combat is much slower and heavier than Skyrim. Every swing feels weighty, and you really have to manage your stamina, because if you're just button mashing your way in fights, you are not going to survive. Blocking, dodging, and choosing the right weapon actually matter here, and it gives encounters a tense, almost Souls-like feel to them. Beyond just fighting, you're going to spend a lot of time scavenging and crafting. Resources are very scarce, so grabbing things like herbs, food, and scrap isn't really optional, it's part of your survival. You'll be crafting gear and potions, which feel a lot less like a side system and more like a requirement to stay alive. Then there are the quests. These handmade and crafted quests don't really have this kind of neat black and white morality to them like you find in other games. The choices in Tainted Grail often feel very dirty, I guess. Sometimes the right thing to do will leave somebody much worse off than when they started, and that moral ambiguity kind of gives weight to your decisions and makes the dialogue feel a lot more than just flavor text to fill out a game. Putting all this together, the game constantly reminds you that you're not some legendary hero yet. You're really just kind of a fragile human scraping by in this very dark world, and that survival layer changes not just the combat, but really how you kind of approach exploration of the game entirely. One of the biggest draws of Tainted Grail is the way that it handles exploration. On paper, it's really just an open world. You can head in basically any direction, pick your own path, and discover hidden places off the beaten road. But unlike Skyrim or other games where wandering feels more like an adventure, here exploration is pretty tense and risky. The world itself feels very hostile. You're always asking, do I have enough food or potions for this trip? Is my torch gonna last through the night? Am I strong enough to even take on these creatures where I'm heading? That constant sense of danger makes even short journeys kind of feel like a gamble. You'll stumble your way through crumbling ruins, twisted forests, and these really corrupted zones that feel like they're actively rejecting you. There are side paths and caves and secrets everywhere, but going off the main road feels more like you might be soon booted to a load recent save screen a lot faster than you think. The day and night cycle really drives this exploration home as well. At night, Avalon feels almost unrecognizable, with shadows stretching out across the land and these really strange creatures lurking just out of sight. Exploration here isn't really about sightseeing, it's more about your survival strategy, and that makes every step through this world feel meaningful. But a dark world is really only as engaging as the people and quests that are in it. I think that the storytelling in Tainted Grail is really what separates it from other traditional RPGs. This isn't like a hero's journey where you're destined to save the realm. Instead, the story is really fragmented, unsettling, and very personal to your character and King King Arthur, who you meet very early on. Most of the quests aren't about making heroic choices, they're about the tough options with no really good answers. Helping one faction might doom another, saving someone might mean sacrificing your own resources, and sometimes the best you can do is just choose between the lesser evils. Dialogue plays a big role here. The game gives you these branching conversation trees where when you pick one option you might lose another, and NPCs don't really always respond the way that you'd expect. Many of them feel broken and corrupted, or just plain untrustworthy. You're never quite sure who's actually telling you the truth, which fits perfectly with the game's tone of this paranoia and decay. Compared to Skyrim, which often casts you as the chosen dragonborn with a clear destiny, Tainted Grail really makes you feel small. You're not the center of the universe here. You're just another survivor caught in a cursed land, maybe able to help the people around you, or more likely steal their stuff after a fight. And that shift makes the narrative feel heavier and in some ways more immersive. So while the world pulls you in with its dangerous landscape, it's the story and the quests that keep you questioning kind of your role in it all and really kept me coming back. I think my favorite part of Tainted Grail is its atmosphere. From the moment you step into the world, it feels heavy, unsettling, and very otherworldly. It mixes the feel of fantasy, medieval kingdoms with dark, necrotic themes, almost H.R. Geiger vibes, where they might be demons or aliens with spaceships mixed with classic fantasy villains. Visually, the game leans hard into that decay and corruption that we talked about. Forests that should feel alive look sickly and twisted, with roots curling like claws and fog hanging low over the ground. Villages aren't really cozy, they're half abandoned, with crooked huts and fires that look like they're barely holding back the darkness. Even the sky above you feels oppressive in these muted grays and these strange kind of unnatural hues that make you question if the land itself is poisoned or if it's all coming from the sky. The sound design is probably one of the best parts, and it only amplifies that uneasiness you feel. You'll hear faint whispers in the wind, creaking trees that sound like they're groaning in pain, and these distant howls that remind you that you're not very safe in this land. The music is pretty sparse, often dropping out to let silence and kind of the ambient noise carry the tension, but when it does swell, it's awesome. It's haunting. These low strings, these deep droning sounds and eerie tones that make even a simple walk in the woods feel like you're descending into something dangerous. The main theme that is sung often feels like it was ripped from a Witcher game, and I mean that in a great way. It's haunting and creepy, but also beautiful and memorable. Together, the visuals and sound really wrap you in this like dark cloak that kind of hides you from the normal joy that you feel that comes with adventuring in a fantasy world. You don't really just exist in Avalon. You feel the weight of the red curse on this land pressing down on you the entire time. So, after spending quite a bit of time in Tainted Grail, the Fall of Avalon, what actually works and what doesn't? Let's break it down. On the upside, the atmosphere is unmatched. If you're looking for a dark, oppressive world that feels almost alive in its decay, this game nails it. The survival mechanics also really mix up the fantasy open world RPG style. You're not just exploring the land, you're constantly thinking of how to stay alive in it. Quests are another highlight, full of tough moral choices that genuinely stick with you long after you've logged out. And for me, taking the King Arthur legend and twisting it into something so grim and alien makes the setting feel very refreshing away from the typical fantasy setting. But it's not perfect. The combat feels pretty clunky at times. It's more methodical than satisfying, timing your parries and dodges and trying to land a swing every now and then with the terrible stamina that you probably start out with. Also, the survival systems, while very immersive, probably won't be for everyone. They feel pretty punishing at times and may turn off players who just want to have a straightforward adventure. On top of that, being in early access means that bugs and technical hiccups are just a part of the package, so expect rough edges and probably optimization issues as you play. I've heard it's much better on the PC than it is on consoles. I only played on consoles and didn't have too many problems, but they were definitely there at times. Then the tone is pretty niche as well. If you want heroic escapism, this world is going to be too bleak and too oppressive instead of fun for you. So yes, Tainted Grail is a bold, unique RPG, but it definitely has its drawbacks, most of which come from probably being a small studio with, I'm sure, a smaller budget. But if you've been waiting for something to scratch that Skyrim itch and you just haven't found it, I think this game just might do it for you. At the end of the day, this game is not the next Skyrim or Oblivion. It's kind of a weird, darker cousin. It's carving out its own space in a more unsettling corner of the RPG world. Where other fantasy games invite you to become a legend, this one kind of challenges you just to try and endure. If you enjoy survival mechanics, moral ambiguity, and a world that constantly keeps you on edge, then this game offers something you probably won't find anywhere else recently. But if you're after the heroic power fantasy, charging into battle as a savior, this is going to be too heavy, too bleak, and probably too unforgiving for you. For me personally, the game's greatest strength is that it really sticks with me. The visuals, the soundscape, the choices, they linger long after you close it down, and that's rare in modern RPGs. So, while Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon may not be the polished Game of the Year contender, and it definitely isn't for everyone. It is one of the best takes on open world role-playing that we've seen in years. And if you're willing to brave the cursed lands, you might just find a game that you'll love. Thanks so much for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to drop a like and let me know in the comments whether you're planning to dive into Tainted Grail or maybe wait for it to be polished up a bit more. And please, let me know what games you guys are playing as well, and we'll see you in the next one.